Hello, everybody out there in radio land. Is once again that time of the week where we dig underneath the headlines, expose that capitalist propaganda, and tell y'all what is really going on out there in the city of Kalamazoo, the state of Michigan, and the so-called United States, and all over the world. Y'all listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. Again, I was gone last week. Appreciate your patience. I had some just real life stuff to take care of. Pretty boring stuff, like had to get a new vehicle. I had to go help my folks with some stuff. Nothing particularly exciting. I wasn't going out there fighting the power so much as I was just fighting that everyday struggle that us working class people always do. But a lot has happened over the last couple of weeks here, and we are definitely going to be talking about them. Probably the biggest story is what the president said last Friday. We're going to be deep diving into that and kind of the implications. Are we looking at an actual ceasefire? What's the over under on it? Is Israel going to actually play ball? We're going to be going into that later on in the program. We've got a lot of local stuff to be hitting on first. I do want to recognize this is the beginning of Pride Month. If you're watching, I'm wearing my she her hers shirt. It's a great uh, queer folk musician from Grand Rapids. That was actually a few years ago. I don't know if they're still active, but it's a dank shirt. It's wrapping up you know queer representation and climate apocalypse all in one T-shirt. What that's work. And We're going to be doing some coverage throughout the month about that. We'll be closing out today's show by doing a piece from the archives. I haven't really decided which one quite yet, but we'll be running a couple of special interviews throughout this month. That some we played on the show before, some that will be new. That will be deep diving into issues of queer rights and representation here in the Kalamazoo area. But first off, I think we're going to be talk. I wanted to shout out what some folks over at KNOW are organizing. There are going to be a lot of events right here on campus for students to plug themselves into if they if they care, if they're upset about the genocide going on over in Gaza. But today, literally just in a couple hours at 3 o'clock, there is going to be a divestment rally over in front of the Siebert Administrative Building. That's right by the Arcadia Loop. And that's going to be from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Sadly, I will not be there as I'm going to be here on the radio. But again, it's literally right down. I think I might be able to actually see it from the studio. So that divestment rally that's happening at the in front of the Siebert Administrative Building, the Arcadia Loop, that is today at 3 p.m. If you can't make it today, tomorrow, there is going to be a WMU support rally for the KNOW's rolling hunger strike. That's Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents of War are doing a rolling hunger strike to oppose the genocide going on in Gaza. And there is going to be a student solidarity rally here on campus over in front of the Fonts Student Services Building from 2:45 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. and over in the broader community from 4 to 6 p.m. over at 5228 Lovers Lane. KNOW has also asked there's some later dates coming up here Thursday. There's email blast and asking students and concerned community members to hit up the administration with their demands. And then on Friday, there's going to be a request to do a social media blast. And then on Saturday, June 8th, there's going to be a banner workshop from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Right here at the WMU Student Center. So again, if you are somebody who wants to get involved in the opposition to the ongoing genocide in Gaza, there's some stuff coming up right here on campus this week that you can get yourself involved in. I also wanted to highlight there is a petition going around, and this comes to us from our comrades over with um, We the People Michigan. But they're asking that basically, so Out Front is the main organization is Pride. Pride is coming up this weekend, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit as well. But it's typically a big fundraiser for Out Front, which is the local, well, I would say probably the preeminent local advocacy organization for the queer community here in Southwest Michigan and in the Kalamazoo area. However, as We the People points out, um, when we try to make Pride as inclusive as possible, we often are forgetting people the workers who are struggling the most, and they wanted to bring attention to this with this petition. And I'm just going to go ahead and read from the petition right here. To the organizers of Kalamazoo Pride 2024, while we are aware that Pride is the largest fundraising event of the year for our local nonprofit organization, having to pay a required cover charge at Kalamazoo's public Pride event painfully excludes the LGBTQ poor and homeless, who are an essential part of our community. There are people who are not only most impacted by systemic homophobia and transphobia, including denial of jobs, housing discrimination, and hate crimes, but are also historically and contemporarily the fiercest champions of LGBTQ liberation and human rights. If not for the bravery and self sacrifice of LGBTQ poor and homeless individuals, there would be no pride at all. In a collective effort to have a local pride celebration that is truly inclusive, equal, and accessible to our entire community, we, the queer and trans people of Kalamazoo, are advocating that there be some free tickets given at the door both days to anyone who needs one. Any advocate who does not proudly and explicitly welcome those among us who are disabled, by indigenous people of color, senior, poor, and low income is not fully representing our community. For that reason, we are requesting a transparent representative from Outfront to make an official notice to the community via their official Facebook page and at the Outfront offices that can be shared and accessed by all, informing the community that free tickets will be made available to anyone who cannot afford to pay. We hope that this will be an important first step in building relationships with people in our trans and queer community who are being left out of Pride, and continue a strong trend towards prioritizing a free Pride for all LGBTQ residents and visitors of Kalamazoo. With the support of Outfront, we can make Pride a barrier-free event that includes and celebrates every community member, especially those of us who are most in need of recognition and aid by society that so often ignores us for no more than our identities and our socioeconomic conditions. We take no pride in attending an event that excludes members of our community based on class status. We are strongest when we stand together. So if you want to sign that petition, we will share that in the show notes. You can find that on the We the People Kalamazoo page. And we will be kind of talking about this again later on in the show. Kind of again more issues related to Pride Fest, etc. So we're going to take a quick little break. We come back. We're going to be hitting on some more important local issues. I'm going to be talking about kind of some solidarity protests that have popped up over the streets, some stuff going on in Grand Rapids. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your only source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So I'm going to be joined by my co-host Lawrence in just a bit here. But I think I'm going to start, this next piece I'm going to do. This is a Michigan story that kind of hit me, especially where we're coming from, trying to do this sort of local de facto journalism right here in the Kalamazoo area that tries to analyze what's going on locally from a working class perspective. We're really lucky here in Kalamazoo. We still have the Gazette. which we have our critiques of the Gazette, of course, and now Kalamazoo. Many small towns in Michigan no longer really have an outlet for local journalism, and this article from Bridge, Michigan, caught my eye, and I'm going to read a bit from it. In this article, it was written by Ron French, published on May 23rd. Michigan town adjusts to life with ghost newsroom as local papers wither. I'm going to read some excerpts from this, probably not the full article, but I'll make sure we'll link in the show notes for those of y'all who are interested in reading the full thing. They painted over the Sheboygan Daily Tribune sign last week. The letters loaded into the back of a pickup truck, and the dark blue bricks disappearing under a coat of fuchsia. Inside the old Main Street building, where once reporters pecked away on stories about the city council, there's now a shop selling medieval goods and swords. We have the largest selection of battle-ready weaponry you can find, said Joe Haythaler, proprietor of the Enchanted Knights store. The local newspaper still exists online, and residents can grab a thin printed copy at Family Fare Supermarket, but the stories within it often aren't focused on Sheboygan. The Daily Tribune employs one sports reporter, but no local news reporters to report on happenings in this Lake Huron community, 15 miles southeast of Mackinac City, leaving residents to scour Facebook and a weekly shopper publication for information on elections and tax increases. Haythaler appreciates the irony of a business focused on bygone times, located in a building where newspaper presses gather dust. It's a dying media, said Haythaler in his medieval tunic. People will still show up here to the old office saying, I have an obituary here, or my daughter was in a sporting event and I want to pick up some extra copies, he said. I sent them to the Speedway and they still sell it. Throughout Michigan and the nation, weekly and daily newspapers that once served as the lifeblood of communities are closing, or, as in Sheboygan, becoming ghost papers with few or no journalists. In those communities, residents sometimes struggle to keep up with local news that impacts their lives far more profoundly than news that's easy to find on Fox or social media. The chronicling of a small town that historic record keeping has faded, said Jill Joseph Greenberg, a former employee at the Sheboygan paper. I wonder, who will tell the story of these resilient people? There are about 6,000 newspapers remaining in the United States. Most of them, 4,790, are weeklies, according to a report by Northwestern University's Middle School of Journalism. As recently as 2005, there were 8,891 newspapers. About 30 newspapers have closed in Michigan since 2016, according to the Michigan Press Association, with about 175 remaining. Newspapers are the cornerstone of a community, said Lisa McGraw, MPA's public affairs manager. They provide reliable information to citizens about elections, local government, the school board, and everyday information like sports scores and school lunch schedules. And when it comes to democracy, it's information about who's running for local offices, what their record is, and who they are. This particular point hits me particularly hard because even a lot of the local press in Kalamazoo, you don't really get a chance to deep dive on the issues, especially with a lot of down ballot candidates. Something important that we have tried to do here in our history of media ciphers is we really try to interview the people running who often are not really given a platform to talk to constituents in the media. And that's everything from like library trustees, people running for the school board, county treasurers, those sorts of positions that typically aren't highlighted on the local debate stage, and that is really really important. Again, a lot of these local politicians have a more profound and immediate impact on our everyday lives than Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Nancy Pelosi or Bernie Sanders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And without these local newspapers and that local journalism showing us kind of who these politicians are, what they're doing, it leaves a big void where honestly, politicians get up to hijinks, but also it leaves an absence of knowledge in the community about the people who are trying to represent them. And especially in this day and age where, you have a lot of kooky people running for these local positions, it's maybe perhaps more important than ever for people to understand who their local politicians are. So going on, a decade ago, Sheboygan's downtown was virtually a ghost town. Today, recently empty storefronts are filled with gift and apparel shops. In a town of about 4,700 people, there are 3 ice cream shops along Main Street. One business that isn't thriving is the town's newspaper. The paper slowly withered over decades, suffering from the same decrease in paid circulation as newspapers across the country, as readers opted for free information online. Then, in 2022, Gannett announced a round of 400 layoffs at its newspapers across the nation, with the last Daily Tribune news reporter among the victims. By the time the last news reporter closed her laptop, the paper was down to a circulation of about 1,400 readers. Sherry Wright, who operates Bittersweet Gift Shop across Maine from the former home of the Daily Tribune, described the online navigating she now goes through to try to keep abreast of community news. The city posts information on their official website, Wright said, as does the Sheboygan Area Chamber of Commerce. You can't remember the last time she picked up a Daily Tribune, she said. It's one less thing that residents share. It's a cohesiveness, whether it's good or bad, a common denominator that's just not there anymore, Wright said. The Daily Tribune still has sports stories and occasional news stories about the community written by reporters based in Gaylord or Petoskey, 2 publications owned by the same media company that owns the Daily Tribune, Gannett. The paper's website includes one contact for news, Courtney Hahn, but the email listed for Hahn no longer works, and the social media account linked on the website hasn't been updated since 2016. In reality, Hahn was laid off in August 2022. She now works in the optical department of a Walmart in Petoskey. Hahn worked at the paper for almost 10 years before being laid off. I was told corporate had a bad quarter and my position was dissolved, she told Bridge. I've told them to take my name and contact off the website, but it's still there. Sarah Leach supervised the Sheboygan newspaper and 14 others in Michigan until earlier this month, when she was fired by Gannett after speaking out about the impact of staff shortages. She calls Sheboygan a ghost newsroom that exists online but no longer has any news reporters. A second Gannett newspaper in the state, the Sturgis Journal, also has no news reporters, Leach told Bridge. We don't really talk about it in media companies, Leach said. It's an embarrassment for a lot of companies because they don't really have a clear answer as how to solve that problem. A spokesperson for Gannett responded to the request for comment for the story with the following statement. The Sheboygan Daily Tribune has deep roots in the Sheboygan County community and will remain committed to providing blah, blah, blah. Sorry. Sheboygan residents noticed the difference quickly. In late 2022, both the City Council and the Sheboygan County Board of Commissioners groused about the fact that no one was reporting to the public about their meetings. People knew about stuff faster when we used to have a reporter at most meetings, said Richard Sangster, a county commissioner and former Sheboygan mayor. One of the biggest concerns is to get general information out to people who used to use the local newspaper as their primary source. Sangster's biggest worry, how residents will get information about local political candidates. I'm running again, and I have a challenger in the primary, he said. There's a sheriff's race that is the big one in the county, and there's a challenger for the 106th state representative seat. Absentee ballots are going out next month. That's not very far away, and people don't know who's running. My biggest fear is that the public doesn't understand what it's missing, Leach said. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. And that just leads to obvious opportunities for corruption in so many different ways, and then you literally have democracy at stake. So again, there's more to that article, and I definitely encourage my listeners to go check that out and read it. Again, that headline is Michigan Town Adjusts to Life with Ghost Newsroom as Local Papers Wither. That was written by Ron French, published on Bridge, Michigan on May 23rd. We're going to take another quick little break. When we come back, we're going to be diving into some more important stories here in the Kalamazoo and Michigan area. Keep a dial locked. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Facebook. We also have YouTube where you can watch all of our episodes. You want to see my nice, bright, smiling face while I'm talking about everything that's wrong with the world. That's Media Cyphers at YouTube. And we also have the Media Cyphers podcast you can tune in to at your convenience, available on most podcasting platforms. We will be right back. This is Media Cyphers, your only source for political revolution. All right. Hello, everybody. We are back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined now by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well myself. So you missed a couple of things, but we're going to be diving into some really important stories here in just a sec. I think I wanted to start with this is something that we haven't hit on in a minute, and I did want to give some updates about some of our comrades up in GR. We read some stories about a year, maybe less ago, talking about how the GRPD is getting pretty oppressive with some of the BLM activists up there, and we've got an update here from some writers slash organizers with Left Voice, Emma Boitari and Tristan Taylor, and this is from May 28th. I'm going to read some bits and pieces from this article, but it's a BLM activists in Grand Rapids face repression and need solidarity. So just some background. As we all remember, in April of 2022, Loyola was murdered by police officer Christopher Schur. It got garnered national attention. Al Sharpton was at the funeral. The family was represented by Ben Crump, who, if you follow these types of stories, Ben Crump and his team of litigators. Um, Tend to they try to I don't know what the word is, come to the rescue or really kind of they make it their mission to try to help people who end up in these types of cases where there's usually
They have been on the
violence involved.
forefront of trying to help bring some justice to this unjust system that we have in our country. Yeah, shout out to Ben Crump and that team. They are out here really doing the Lord's work.
Hmm.
Um it the last the last years for us to find justice in these cases that have truly tested they have put a spotlight on why the justice system can be unjust. Ben Crump and others, they have really tried to move to try to make sure that justice is blind and she stopped peeking to see if it's a black offended or not.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and I think I'm gonna go kind of meat and potatoes of this because really what they're pointing out is here's kind of the type of repression that a lot of these activists are facing. Um, last month there is a couple of people activists are facing charges for organizing, taking part in protests held last month on the 2-year anniversary of Loyola's death. One of the activists received her charges. Kai is facing a felony for supposedly injuring an officer's eardrum with a bullhorn and a misdemeanor for disturbing the peace. And another activist, Allie Bates, is being accused by GRPD of violating her probation. And this is literally because they were there, they weren't even taking part in the protest. They were live streaming and taking pictures, basically serving the role as like an independent journalist. So like if I were to show up at a protest and document stuff or videotape stuff, um and they're trying to say that it's a violation of their probation. I also just want to talk about how ridiculous so the whole eardrum charge. Um Keep in mind, like the police at protests will whip out LRADs, which are designed to cause permanent damage to protesters' eardrums. So apparently that's fine, but if a cop gets too close to you when you're using your bullhorn, that's assault. And really the thing that we need to keep in mind because it also details how uh, Really the cops have been pretty brutal to people up in GR, which shouldn't be surprising. It's a very conservative area. The DeVosses kind of run the show up there. Um, but they talked about Allie talked about being assaulted by GRPD and knocked on the ground. Now, officer actually tried to kick them in the stomach after they fell, and after they indicated they were pregnant. And something that the organizers here underscore, which I think is really important, and I'm just going to read quickly from this. These activists understand that they are being targeted by the state in an effort to disrupt the movement and keep it from sustaining itself and growing. Kai pointed out the cops silence the loudest voices and that they'll do anything to keep us quiet. The attacks on leaders has had a chilling effect on the movement too. Targeting leaders has slowed down organizing in Rapids, especially since some of those leaders were forbidden to be in contact with each other as part of their plea agreement. It also discourages others from participating who fear having to deal with serious charges by the police or being physically harmed. Dealing with legal cases can be expensive, exhausting, and take up a huge amount of a person's time. Kai mentioned how they went to court 5 times in the past month. They are pulling every string they can to make sure I don't have any time. I have a wife and kids. I only have so much energy. Um, I kind of point to that because these are like the small ways that police and these municipalities try to silence people, kind of using the legal system against them. Uh, and in particular, again, we have a lot, there's a lot of cases we can point to, the article points to like the campaign to free, like, Angela Davis, et cetera. But however you slice it, you can be strategic with it. You can use a legal case to draw attention to a cause, etc. But it takes it drains a lot of a movement's resources. It drains a lot of attention. It drains a lot of time. All the organizers in this piece, us included, we're all working class people. We got to balance community organizing with having a job, and if you're dealing with a high profile court case on top of it, where you might be looking at serious jail time, that is a ton of time and stress that most people don't really even have time for.
I mean, to be honest about it, like, yeah, to all the points that you're just saying, but some of these actions that we're talking about, we've we've seen not just in Grand Rapids. Uh, if you remember, I think me and you covered how the police was using the legal system in other ways, in other forms of intimidation to the Uvalde parents that were um, speaking out about their inaction and how they were roughing up the parents when they should have been doing their job stopping the mass shooter. This is also very, very, uh, and very much some of the echoes that we hear about the solidarity protests, right? That's going on campuses, where the police officers are using a much more excessive force or charging people for nonsensical crimes, right? They're charging the peaceful protesters, not the violent people who actually were harming them, but the peaceful protesters, right? Um, to hear that the police officers in Grand Rapids are trying to disrupt the progress of the BLM movement, are trying to use the legal system to disrupt uh, the BLM, Grand Rapids BLM's organization, to disrupt, to harm the leaders of that group. And remember, because I know we remember, because we covered it, when there was peaceful protests in Grand Rapids around the BLM movement, some of the cops up there would respond with violence. So it's kind of par for the course.
Yeah, it's sad to say this isn't really anything new, and it's again this is I like how the article really tries to put this in its historical context, this is a long state tool of both, police and the state to try and drain, exhaust, and silence people, because the effect is not only on these particular individuals getting charged, but it's also kind of an implicit threat. If you get involved in this kind of organizing, you're either gonna you might go to jail, or at the very least you're gonna face months of financially and emotionally draining litigation. It's almost like kind of like the small scale version of those slap lawsuits. You've heard us talk about those on the show, where a big corporation will sue a person, a municipality, an organization, and the intent is not necessarily to even win the case. It is to bog down that organization in the time and resources it takes for them to defend themselves. And you basically see that same dynamic with these cases being brought forth against these protesters here, who, again, like, especially like that instance of that person violating probation. Documenting an event is not a violation of probation, but now that person has to go to court and defend themselves and point that out. And that both wears on that person's time, and it's also in a message to other people in the community, where, like, hey, if you get involved in this in any way, even to document it, we will find anything we can to pin on you and drag you through the legal process. I also did want to point out too, so there is an explicit ask in this article too. If you feel a certain way about this, they are saying activists are asking people donate to a GoFundMe fund. We'll put that in the show notes. And they are also asking people provide court support by attending the legal hearings of activists. The one that they mentioned in the article has already passed, but we'll make sure to keep y'all updated uh, on these things. Again, Grand Rapids is about a 45-minute drive to the north. A lot of us have connections with our comrades in GR, and yeah, they're dealing with this very particular form of police repression that has a long history, and in some ways is even uh, can be at least like more draining than outright police violence. It's like you get slapped around by a cop once, and you can make a legal case out of it, but when they drag you into the court system, it's more just they are stealing your energy over time, and it takes a different sort of solidarity. I like to tell people, organizing is a marathon, it is not a sprint. And particularly when you deal with the state, which they have so many resources, they have time, they can buy their time and bring these cases against you and all this other stuff. um, that is really one of the more important things I think we can do, is try to make sure that we have solidarity, folks, not only, who are dealing with direct police violence and repression, but also this type of repression that seeks to bog them down in the legal system and basically try to stress and exhaust them out of organizing.
I couldn't agree more, man. We need to strategize, mobilize, and organize to get to the results that we are asking for, to get closer to the freedom and restitution that we talk about, and just for us to have some accountability and some dignity. We have seen how hard police officers uh will do everything in their power to uh not be held accountable for the actions that they do to us, the tax-paying citizens that pay their taxes. Uh just asking those who have a legal right of using force to be more careful, to be better, to hold themselves more accountable. Shouldn't be this hard, but yet here we are. And yeah,
Yeah. So again, we'll link to that article in the show notes. If you want to read that full thing for yourself, that's from Left Voice. Um, Headline is BLM activists in Grand Rapids face repression and need solidarity. And there's again also links in the article to their GoFundMe's and other ways that you can lend support to this ongoing struggle these organizers facing um, uh, legal challenges, potential jail time for basically exercising their free speech rights up in the city of Grand Rapids. So I think, let me see. Lawrence, let's take just a quick little break. I'm going to drink some coffee and then we'll kind of figure out what we'll talk about next. Everybody out there in radio land, keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You could also find us online at our Facebook page or on YouTube. And then we've got the Media Cipher Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution.
You you okay, fam? You good?
All right, everybody, we are back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So we're now going to go kind of to national, international issues. And as I said at the top of the show, I think we want to spend some time talking into this prospective ceasefire deal that Biden talked about in a big speech on Friday. I was actually at work and it was on the television. And typically I'm pretty busy, but I took a moment to kind of listen to what he had to say. Um, and just let's just really give some context real quick before we dive into our analysis of what the proposal is. So this is what Joe Biden said during his daytime speech. Um, he said, "Here's the terms. This new proposal has three phases. The first phase would last 6 weeks. It would be a full and complete ceasefire, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, release of a number of hostages, including women, the elderly, the wounded, in exchange for the hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. There are American hostages who would be released at that stage, and we want them home. Additionally, some remains of the hostages who have been killed would be returned to their families. And then again, they talk about the next phase being an ongoing ceasefire, and then moving on towards actually like rebuilding Gaza. Um, and so my initial reaction is kind of like I had both like an optimistic and a cynical take on it. I guess I'll start with like kind of the more cynical take first, which is, again, it's still, we got to point out it's been 7 months. It shouldn't have taken this long with all the leverage that the US government has. And I mean, I feel like, a broken record at this point, but I think it is worth pointing out because the mainstream media does not point this out. At any moment between October 7th and now, it was fully within the president's power to cut off the 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 uh, uh, the chain of weapons and supplies to the IDF. We could have basically forced the IDF to engage in this conflict, however we wanted to, by using uh, our control of their weapons flow as leverage. Not to mention all the other aid. President Biden deliberately chose not to do that for 7 months. So, in the context of this potential ceasefire, which is, probably the best potential news we've gotten in months, it is worth remembering this could have happened much, much, much sooner. And it was a deliberate choice of this administration and of the military industrial complex to allow this genocide to go on for as long as it has. That being said, um, this is at least has a warmer reception than previous ceasefire deals. The fact that President Biden actually went on TV to announce it means that he had there's some actual heft behind it. Hamas has agreed to it. Israel is kind of like, I mean, we'll see, and we're going to talk about that more in depth because that could be the big monkey wrench in all this. But I do want to point out to y'all, we've talked about these issues for a number of years. The U.S. historically has kind of put themselves as a mitigator in a lot of these conflicts, but it's very rare that I have seen them do something that is, again, kind of directly opposing the wants of Israel, especially the right wing government that wants to carry this out to quote unquote total victory. Their words, not mine, which sounds kind of fascist when you say it out loud. And It is really the result. Like I really want you all to understand, especially the younger people. Historically, the U.S. and Israel, like the U.S. has just they have deferred to Israel in all of these previous conflicts. They've let them do basically whatever they want. And what is unprecedented, I think, in this case is you have an administration that is actually responding to the immense public pressure, which has also been unprecedented. Like, if you're 18, 19, I don't think you quite understand. Yes, there's always been opposition to the settler colonial project in Israel, but the kind of numbers we have seen since October 7th, it's unlike anything I have ever seen in my years as an activist. And we're seeing those immense numbers and that pressure bear fruit. So the fact that we have, Biden out there going against decades of his own very just like pro-Zionist, pro-Israel precedent to stand behind this ceasefire deal speaks immensely to the power of organizing. And anybody out there who has been spending last few months out in the street, who have been protesting, who have been organizing, um, this is directly because of you. And I want you to really take that to heart and understand it and realize, like, again, people do have power. And, Joe Biden left to his own devices. If there wasn't this big public outcry, he would just be on autopilot about this issue until the election. And God knows how many more people would get killed. And again, there's still the potential for that to happen. We don't know how Israel is going to respond necessarily. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But I did want to really point out that this would not have happened if it weren't for you, the listening public, who's out there sharing the truth about Palestine, who is being loud, who's writing your representatives, who's out there in the streets, who's been at the encampments, et cetera, et cetera. And we owe you a debt of gratitude for being out there loudly saying, "Not in our name." Lawrence, jump to you and some of your thoughts on this potential ceasefire deal we're looking at.
Um, the fact that a lot of the rhetoric coming from the ceasefire deal uh was basically what uh uh Hamas and the Palestinian Authority wanted in the first place. I think it was some stuff that they were saying months ago. I think 2 or 3 months ago, right? Was so and for them to basically say for this deal to basically be a mirror a lot of that same language. It's like what you said. It says a lot. And I also think, and this is my own personal speculation, that the there are people in the Biden administration that's like, dog, we can read a poll. That non-committed vote in multiple swing states, added um with the fact that they try to ban TikTok because of the pro-Palestinian movement, even though those students were called pro-Hamas terrorists, sympathizers, and all that. All of their demagoguery and all of their fear mongering didn't work, and this is Biden in many ways coming late to the party, like 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 Bernie and others who I truly respect. that we truly respect were late to the party and calling it a genocide, right? But they eventually got there and said, no, this is an ethnic cleansing. This is a genocide. This where now it's like, hey, look who's also late to the party, but at least you are now here, right? That's kind of how I feel about it. It's like so many more people could have could so many more people would be alive if they would have gotten to this position earlier, and more people could have been saved. But at least we're here. That there is a thing on the table. And yeah, Israel decided to crush your red line and decided to break your red line without any fanfare. So we should, I don't know, do something to actually stop the violence. So since Israel has violated your red line, Israeli soldiers are on Telegram and in other social media platforms, literally stealing the aid that's supposed to be going to the Palestinians. That this partner for peace has done everything that they have could, that they're with their actions to be the problem in this situation. Yeah, it's good to see Biden be like, hey, look, we actually have a plan to get the hostages home. That's on both sides to stop the ceasefire and for people to get back to some type of normalcy. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a good thing, and I think it's something that we can't rest on these laurels, but it is something that we should be happy about.
Yeah, I think that's important to point out because as cynical as we can and should get,
Yeah,
this could save lives. And I want people who've been organizing for months around this too. It's like when the dust settles, we don't. It's still unknown how many Palestinians have actually been killed. It's going to be a monstrous number. I think we know that, but um, we can think
it's
of
gonna
how
be
many
ugly.
more. Try to think like how many people have potentially been saved because people here in the Imperial Core have been out here in the streets demanding an end to the genocide. And I really want people to kind of hold that close to their heart. Um, that being said, it is still up in the air whether this ceasefire plan is actually going to move forward. And basically, it is really the big monkey wrench is how Netanyahu and the Israeli government is going to move forward on it. Because uh, as we know, basically where Netanyahu is at right now, he's facing two opposing pressures domestically, and what we are looking at is a situation where Netanyahu on one side, he's got a lot of people, a lot of right wingers in his cabinet, part of his coalition, who they do not want him to do this ceasefire deal. They are adamant about finishing the job or total victory or whatever that means. Which I guess that just means decimating every single human being in the Gaza Strip. Who knows?
Pretty
Um,
much.
yeah. And but he's also got more center right and more liberal constituencies who are demanding that he accept a ceasefire deal because a lot of them still have family that is being held hostage, who want them returned home, that think it's a sensible deal, exchanging Palestinian prisoners for hostages. Um, and really we've got to see how that is going to play out because what Benjamin Netanyahu is asking, like, is it more risky politically for him to say no to Joe Biden or to say no to some of the right wingers just in his cabinet, like Ben Gvir and Smotrich? Um,
I
and
mean, I mean,
yeah,
not to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but also it's so bad that the International Criminal Court, the person that was appointed by Israel and the United States, had to be like, "Hey, we have to, we have to issue arrest warrants for the heads of Hamas, but also the cabinet members and Bibi Netanyahu because y'all are doing a textbook genocide. Like when the person that you put in power says, guys, folks, if if we say that these laws are for Putin and other war criminals, that's one thing. When you're blatantly doing war crimes and y'all are televising it and y'all are saying that this is the plan, these same laws have to be applied to you, fam. There's nothing we can do.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing too, is like it again, it's like this very I don't know if you'd call it like uh two-minded or schizophrenic approach as far as American foreign policy goes. Because like about the same day that Biden announces this foreign policy, you have Chuck Schumer and the Republican dude, I forget his name, saying
Roy
that they're gonna
Moore?
and
No, not Roy Moore. Not Roy
the
Moore.
the head of the House,
Yeah, the head.
what's
Yeah.
his
I
name?
know you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot his name. But
But
I know who you're talking about.
but yeah, they basically they invited Netanyahu to come in front of Congress, which you know, Bernard, to his credit, was like, why are we inviting somebody who's charged with international war crimes to speak to Congress? Like,
Oh
it
no! Oh
just,
no! You invite him so that the ICC can arrest him in America.
yeah, there
That's
you
what
go.
that's
Yeah,
that's why you invite him. You invite him. Yes, let him come to America to speak, and so that the ICJ can be like, "Hey yo, that war criminals in DC right now. We need to take him to the Hague."
yeah, and I think we're noticing too, like it's the average working class American in this country is paying far more attention to international politics than they used to, and this reality is just starting to kind of catch up to Joe Biden and people in his cabinet. There's something that one of the people in his cabinet said that really struck me. They were making a comparison to the number of civilians Israel's killed. It's like, well, we did the same thing in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's like kind of
That's not a good thing to brag about, fam.
no. It's like that was bad too. It's like
Like, yeah,
yeah, it's
I,
like
I,
this new generation is paying more attention to what is done with our tax money and does not like it. And yeah, saying like, oh well, we did the same thing. It's like, yeah, we know that was also bad. It's like
yeah, yeah,
these dinosaurs don't understand this new environment they're in, where we have the internet, we see what atrocities are being committed with our tax dollars. And yeah, like Gen Z ain't putting up with it, or Gen Alpha, or in the millennials and stuff.
yeah.
We
So,
we do not like this crap anymore, and we're
well,
not putting up with it.
well, yes, and because you have to think about we have to think about the dichotomy of what's going on, right? This is a generation that lived through the pandemic. This generation that we're talking about, they lived through the pandemic. They saw friends, family members die because one of the people who may be president again said that you should put bleach in your body to fight COVID, right?
Yeah.
So they live through that. They see how resources keep going to weapons contractors and engines of war and death, while at the same time saying that they don't have money for the average American. Yet we always find more money to send to Ukraine, to send to Israel, while Israel has universal health care and we don't.
Mhm.
So when you understand or it, and also we have a lot, thanks to social media, a lot more raw and uncut footage of what's really going on, and those that cannot manipulate the message or the messengers and the propaganda is not hitting like it used to. It's not as potent as it used to be
Mhm.
because of how diverse a lot of more voices that we're having. The more diversity of voices talk about these subjects. So it is one. So to bring it back home, and I'm sorry that I'm taking so long to get to my point. It's it's a good thing that we have this ceasefire. I hope that Biden is this isn't just something to cover his tail, and he actually is like, no, you're going to do this, or we are no longer going to be giving you weapons. We're, or that would be the thing that we will see. This could be a bluff from Biden, and he could be like, hey man, I said this so that I can make sure I win some swing states and I can become president. Or he
Yeah,
can be like, no, or he can be like, no, you can choose not to take this deal, Israel. But if you choose not to take this deal, we're no longer giving you money and weapons. You want to continue to bomb Gaza and Rafah? Cool. You're just going to do it without our help.
yeah, I think that's where we really need to see if the rubber is going to hit the road on that because it's like my
Yes.
guess, if it's not going to be now, it'll probably be later. Israel, because it's just what they've done historically. They act in bad faith. They'll pull out of the deal. Oftentimes they'll just make something up and be like, "Oh, Hamas did a thing," and then of course we'll look back and it's like, You that didn't actually happen," and then they'll be like, "Oh, oops." Um, but
No,
we've got to,
no, guy, that was you.
yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
fam.
Um, and so what we're going to have to really look at is, if Netanyahu, if he responds to the right wingers versus the more center right people in Israel who want the hostages home, if he gets belligerent and says he's not stopping the war, what's Biden's next move? Is he going to actually use the leverage that the United States and his administration has, or is he just going to throw his hands up and be like, "Well, I tried, everybody. What you gonna do? Orange man bad." It's that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Orange Man bad is not enough, especially when people are like, "Hey, we lived through Orange Man bad. And we don't know if we want to keep doing this with you." And that is the problem. The problem that I see is that a lot of that is going to be Trump, Biden, or the couch. And as of right now, from an electoral standpoint, it looks like the couch may be winning.
Yeah, yeah. I think like me and Nora, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and we are just saying like, if you're the lesser evil, you don't want to spend the entire election cycle closing the daylight between you and the greater evil. And I think this is kind of his attempt to be like, okay, no, I'm legitimately not as terror, I care about this. I'm going to try to stop the carnage, etc.
Yes.
But if if Netanyahu, swings right and Biden does nothing about it, it's it's not going to do anything for him in November because again, the constituencies that are, would be responsive to this are paying enough attention to notice whether he's actually, if his actions match up with his words.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
crossing.
he's Drake right now going against Kendrick. Like that's the problem. he's he's
Yeah.
he's like, hey, yeah, and the American people is Kendrick. He's saying you're not like us. They not
Mhm.
like us.
But I say, like, let's all cross our fingers and, you know, uh, stay out there in the streets, keep organizing, keep the pressure on, because,
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, all these politics we're talking about translates into how many lives are saved versus how many continue to get blown up. And we really got to hope that the pressure we put on and the pressure that some of those more center people in Israel are putting on Netanyahu will bear an actual lasting ceasefire and we can see an end to this just absolute carnage that we keep seeing in our feeds every single day.
Facts. Absolute facts.
So, with that, Lawrence, if you did, we want to move on to the next topic. Are we going to be talking about? So there is another story you might have heard about that happened last week.
I,
I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
know,
It's
I
kind of
know.
an
No,
obscure one. Not a lot of people were
oh no,
talking about it.
no. There's
Uh,
we get. I talked about the Kendrick and Drake stuff a while ago on here, and it finally concluded. Just this is as a quick hit because I really need to lay down a bet for our audience. I I want to have a bet. I think because we have history was made. We have a former president that has a felony. Like that need I need to know because this was a state case. It was a state case and I want to know, do you think 45 is going to Rikers? I need I think he's going to Rikers.
Oh man. I don't want to have a crystal ball. I'm gonna say like so there's this classic SNL skit. It's from their late Trump era. It was like in 2020, like before the pandemic, or maybe 2019. But it's like this. It's a skit that I still find hilarious. And the day the verdict came out, I posted it on my page. And the general setup is like they're talking about one of like, oh, Trump's gonna get impeached. He's in trouble. Ukraine, blah blah blah. And Keenan Thompson, the joke is Keenan Thompson plays this panelist. All these other kind of liberal white people are talking about like, ooh, Trump's really in trouble now. And at the end of every like point, Thompson's character is just in the corner saying, "It's like, oh, ain't nothing gonna happen." No, it's and like that's kind of how I feel about this, which is like y'all like it was like Christmas came early for all of our, like our liberal aunties and uncles on Facebook, but like
Yeah.
as like kind of my grumpy Marxist self, like I don't think that billionaire is going to see jail time. I don't think it's really going to have too many consequences. I think the data as it currently is, I think he's still probably going to get reelected or elected again
Mm,
in November.
yeah.
So my thought is like, it's kind of I think it's kind of funny. I'm glad to see it. It always warms my heart to see a rich person get some level of consequences. And he doesn't like have a felony on his
Oh
record,
no. Oh
but
no.
I don't think he's gonna go to jail. At most, he's gonna go to one of those like minimum security rich people jails. And
On yeah,
um
no, he this happened in New York. Okay,
yeah,
I
well,
like I agree with you. So like as 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 a as a black socialist, as a socialist and democratic socialist, I feel like rich rich men like him are do not see the actions of their consequences, will not in any way see the the full weight of what he did. Like he's he's not getting 4 years, right? I don't think well, I take that back. He has been talking junk about this judge, and the judge is the one that has to give him his sentence. Like he's been talking junk about the judge. He tried to he tried to pay off witnesses to not cooperate with the investigation. He tried to do it days before they were going to trial and during the trial. He's he tried to dox the people on the jury just in case his fans wanted to have a conversation with him. So and this particular judge a number of times have had to put Trump in his place, like, dude, what are you doing? Cuz, what are you like, fam? You do understand that you are truly messing up right now, and this is not okay. So I want to say, nah, he's going to Rikers. He might end up going to Rikers for a year. I hope they put him in there for a year to at least 2 years. And I don't want any of those people who complain about uh who talk about prison reform or things of that nature or prison about uh abolition because some people are prison abolitionists some and I don't want to hear any of that because when it was young black and brown people going to prison, y'all didn't have no problem of being on that train being okay with it.
yeah, there
But
was a similar dynamic.
now since it's Trump, want to care about dignity and you care about rehabilitation and hope and stuff. Like, nah, I don't want to hear any of that smoke. I want all the same smoke that you gave everybody else.
There's this great I just I can't remember exactly when it was, but like Marjorie Taylor Greene went to visit some of like the J6 prisoners, and
Yeah,
like she was on the floor talking about just like, oh, these the horrible conditions of these prisons, and the squad or whatever was behind her, and like they're just making like that you don't say face.
you,
Like
yeah,
it's like,
you don't say prison's really bad, huh?
oh
Maybe
yeah,
we
yeah.
should, maybe we should uh put more money into rehabilitation and things of that nature, right? We maybe, right? Now, I want Trump. I hope that he does at least 2 years in Rikers. This happened in New York. This is a New York case, and also he gets the same treatment that other felons have. They cannot vote, right? They well, he's living in Florida, so and yeah, he's living in Florida. Uh, and I think the Florida House or Congress uh destroyed the ballot measure of letting felons vote. So in Florida, he will not be allowed to vote. I want him. I tweeted about. I think I didn't tweet about it, but I wrote about it on my Facebook page. That man may be allowed to have the most powerful job in our country and be allowed to vote and be allowed to have all of the liberties of a free man, even though he has 38 different felonies. Meanwhile, there are non-violent drug offenders who have felonies that cannot get a job at Walmart.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is the world that we live in. And no, I want all the smoke. I want all the smoke, and I want him to get all that smoke.
I
Please
will
live
say,
like the rest of us.
of all the places that could have been tried, New York is probably the likeliest place for that to happen because he's burned a lot of bridges in New York. There's a reason he had
Oh
to
yeah,
run down to Florida. New Yorkers do not like him. He screwed a lot of people over there.
yeah,
It's like you think he screwed America? Go visit New York. um,
man. Nah,
I
I
do
want.
I do
Yeah, go
also
ahead.
just want to point out because again I think it's my obligation as someone on the left to point out, hey, we do have to point out the absurdity that like if you really want to be serious, like every president in living memory has committed criminal offenses and they've never been brought to justice for it. We're talking about war
Back.
crimes and stuff. But yeah, we have this situation where he pays off a porn star in an election, and it seems like it's a very American thing to happen. Like this is the first president who's been actually taken to task for their crimes, and it's because he did something nefarious within our very corrupt system. Um, and
No,
of
he
course,
did. He did fraud. He
yeah,
committed
yeah.
fraud.
Mhm.
Like his fixer went to jail because he committed fraud. Like, and the thing that scuffs my Timbs, and I'm just to steal a line from some of my favorite battle rappers. The things that scuffs my Timbs is the fact that, like you said, there, if the Nuremberg laws was still a thing, I think Noam Chomsky, I'm paraphrasing Noam Chomsky, every post-war World War II president would be in the Hague. We all understand that, right?
Mhm.
All of the presidents in our recent history, in our current history, has done things that would be considered war crimes. This man used federal funds. He used funds that was given to him by donations from other Americans so that he could pay hush money to a porn star that he slept with while his wife was pregnant. Forget the family values part about this, right? If you're a conservative, I don't want to hear you talk about family values. The person that you support committed adultery while his wife was pregnant with their child. I don't want to hear nothing about family values from you ever again in life, ever. Uh, Forget all about that. The
Yeah.
man who testified, Michael Cohen, was sent to prison for doing said crime. He's the
Yep.
one that Trump gave the money to. And if you and and this is the other thing. Outside the salacious stuff that the mainstream media was carried on about how Stormy Daniels and Trump did the dirty deed and all that stuff. I don't care anything about that. I do care about Tucker Carlson and Fox News and how they tried to spin it and frame it. Like, hey, if they are going after Trump, and they can get Trump for this, they can get anybody for this, and they can come after you. What?
Yeah,
What?
oh yeah,
Wait,
that's because
what?
yeah,
What?
I mean, I know we're both in the habit of paying hush money to
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I have hush money that I'm going to pay to somebody because I had an affair with them while my wife was pregnant with our child. Okay.
Well, again, it's just a lot of the people in the Trump cult are just that divorced from reality. Like you've seen the
Like,
memes, some of these gross memes, like probably the grossest one is like a lot of like Trump being transposed to Jesus. It's like they found me guilty too, or so. It really
yeah,
gross stuff. It's like
bro, the fact that like to quote Kendrick Lamar in the Euphoria song when he was talking about Drake, I have morals integrity, but I can see you don't know nothing about that. If you think that that man is relatable because he committed felonies, who have you been hanging out with that makes you think that's relatable? Because
yeah,
who any man who cheats on his wife while they're pregnant with their child, uh, and then tries to use money that other people gave him. By the way, he didn't even use his own money. He used money that other human beings gave him to try to cover it up. That person is relatable to you, then you might have some issues that you need to work out because that sounds like a human being that has nothing to do with anything that I care.
yeah. I mean, at the very least, like if you were a Trump supporter, wouldn't you just be like, "Hey, you stole my money"? Like, you think you'd be upset about that? But again, it's like a lot of people are just who support him are just so divorced from reality that it's a political prosecution. It's the deep state. The deep state made him bribe a porn star with my money. I don't I don't know.
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm not to cut you off, and I'm so sorry, but think about that the mental gymnastics there. He didn't steal. He committed a lot of fraud while he was in office, so he did steal a lot of Democrats. But the money that he gave to Karen McDougal, to not Karen McDougal, but Stormy Daniels, that wasn't money that Democrats gave him. That was Trump supporters. He conned his own people. He didn't con us. He didn't get our money. He got his own people's money to pay somebody he shouldn't have been sleeping with in the first place. Like,
Yep.
come on, dog. Like, I I don't like I just like how he said I don't like my veterans I don't like my veterans to be losers. I don't like my veterans who got captured. He's a war hero because when talking about John McCain, he was like he's a war hero because he got captured. I like my heroes to not get captured. I don't want my president to have felonies. Okay? I don't want that. I don't want that at all. A president I don't want a president who cannot control himself among a woman with his hand on the button on the nuclear codes. Like I don't find that to be safe at all. That's the real story.
Hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
would you trust this man around your daughter or around your wife?
Oh God, no.
Doc, I wouldn't trust this man. I wouldn't trust Trump to wash my car, let alone uh yeah, but anyway, we're off topic. The thing is, I want to make a bet, Andy. Is he going to serve time? And if he serves time, will it be at Rikers Island?
Okay, I'm gonna
Rikers
bet.
Island. That Rikers Island.
I will give you my public enemy hat, but I'm gonna say no. Yeah, I'm gonna say
Uh
not going to jail.
okay. If if he goes to jail or prison, I think he's I think he's going to spend maybe a year to 2 years either in jail or prison because the main reason why is because he talked so much junk about this judge and the judge's family and the judge's daughter. He brought up the judge's daughter. Just again, just like in the Drake and Kendrick beef, why are you bringing up my family members in this case? And I have to give you your sentence. You must want to go to jail. You know what? It's fine. I will give you what you're asking for. I feel like he is going to go to jail. Do I think he's going to Rikers? I hope he goes to Rikers. I don't think he's going to Rikers. I think, like you said, if he does go to jail or prison, it will be in a very upstate, white collar crime type of prison. Club fed, like you said, it's going to be one of those type of deals.
Oh yeah, and you're not gonna milk that for all it's worth. Like, oh, our imprisoned candidate, and he's out there probably like playing tennis or some crap. I don't
Oh yeah, he's going
know.
to be playing tennis.
Yeah.
He's going to be with like when Cheech and Chong went to when they
Oh,
had to
what am
serve
I
time.
saying? This is Donald Trump. He's gonna watch other people play tennis
Yeah,
while
he's
eating
gonna
a
watch
Big
other
Mac.
people play chess. He is gonna hit some golf balls
Yeah,
while he's there.
yeah.
That might happen.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think he's going to prison.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll keep a pin on that and kind of see how that develops. All right.
Right.
Okay, Lawrence. Up to you. I was gonna play some kind of Pride rerun material. If you want to keep going, we can. Up to you.
I have I have oh yeah, it is Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Mm.
Uh for those I stand in solidarity with my brothers and sisters and those in between. Happy Pride Month to everybody. And for everybody else, don't make it weird. It's not that big of a deal. uh so I don't know if you saw the news about Louisiana.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you
About
sent the story in the chat. This is some
what can
interesting.
you can, can you I'm I'm trying to finish something on my computer. I'm trying to pull it up. My computer's acting very silly. Can you please pull it up in the chat?
Okay, yeah,
Just
yeah. So this is an article from
uh
PBS. And it says Louisiana lawmakers approve surgical castration option for those guilty of sex crimes against children. And as it goes on to say, a person found guilty of a sex crime against a child in Louisiana could soon be ordered to undergo surgical castration in addition to prison time. Louisiana lawmakers gave final approval to a bill Monday that would allow judges the option to sentence someone to surgical castration after the person has been convicted of certain aggravated sex crimes, including rape, incest, and molestation against a child younger than 13. Several states, including Louisiana, currently can order such criminals to receive chemical castration, which uses medications that block testosterone production in order to decrease sex drive. However, surgical
okay.
castration is a bit more invasive. Well, chop chop,
Okay.
it is. But okay.
So stop. Uh I want to remind everybody that a large portion of the black and brown community in this country lives in the South. And there are 8 states, some of them are in the South, that have like that the article said that has medical castration for for certain inmates, which I feel like is cruel, which I feel like is cruel and unusual. Um Also when you take into consideration that 50% of exonerations that happen in this country happen to black folks that have been incarcerated for crimes that they did not commit. So while thinking about this, I was like, you might have a person who gets exonerated, like the Central Park Five, right? Oh, and fun fact, the same courtroom that the Central Park Five had their trial in was the same courtroom that Donald Trump had their trial in. Fun fact for those who did not know that. Um, you might have a situation like those men who might spend decades in jail. who might have had this procedure done to them while they're in jail, and surgical castration is not reversible. Medical castration can may be reversed. Surgical, absolutely not, because you can't sew something back on like that. So they might have something taken from them, and they might get out of jail and have their life irreparably harmed because of because of this. I'm like, dog, this is absolutely barbaric. It is it is middle age barbarism. This is absolutely draconian, and I do not agree with it in any way, shape, or
And I think the thing that's really insidious about it is so you start with the baseline questions. Like, do you think bad things should happen to child molesters? Like 99.99999% of people are going to say
yeah,
absolutely. Yes.
absolutely,
Totally.
yes.
But the problem is when you enshrine it in the justice system, the problems that you brought up again are staggering. You could, again, as you mentioned, not reversible. And if somebody's getting falsely accused, the ramifications of that are terrifying. And I also, want to bring up another point that this made me think of, especially during Pride Month. You have these laws being passed across the country trying to paint drag queens, transgender persons, queer people in general as groomers, people who go after
Mm,
children. Now, you just need to do a little bit of math. And if you have a state that has this law in place, as well as laws that make it illegal to exist while trans around children, you're basically giving a license to castrate people for being queer. And I know that maybe that sounds
I mean,
alarmist, but look at where
I,
we at compared to even just a few years ago in this country. And
I'm not to interrupt you on that, but we're not gonna pretend like this country doesn't have a history of euthanizing people, indigenous people, black women, immigrants, literal immigrants had their uterus taken out of them, uh, uh for while they were in cages, Biden cages and Trump's cages for no reason.
yeah, this isn't ancient
So
history. This literally just happened like
you, no,
three,
this
four,
is this
five,
is
6 years
this
ago. Like, yeah.
this is literally may still be happening today. Like
Hmm.
it's not something that this happened during the Trump administration. We lived through people being having their reproductive organs removed because they chose to do so. And this is why I bring that up. Who says that they're gonna stop? Who says that they're gonna stop at just people with sexual assault, with sex offenders of children? Who says that they're going to regulate that, or the people who's administrating it, or going to have the prisoners that are eligible for it? Who says they're going to just stop at them? We
Yeah,
the Tuskegee. The first thing that I thought of when I read this was the Tuskegee experiment. People were literally lied to in getting this treatment done to them for their own safety when they were using them as test subjects. People could be literally lied to about, hey, yo, something's going on down there. You might want to get it checked out. And then they end up not having all of their equipment when they wake up. Like, I don't trust I do not trust I do not trust organizations that make money off of the caging of other humans. I do not trust them to not abuse this kind of law to inmates.
no,
And
absolutely. Yeah. Like this could be easily and terrifyingly weaponized against like really just any marginalized group that
it,
again, the same people who passed this law are also apparently trying to paint queer people as child molesters. So I really want people to understand the terrifying implications of how this law could be used.
Yeah, this is happening in Louisiana, but there are 8 states where medical castration takes place. California, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, I think Ohio, no, Wisconsin, and I think Oregon was the other state. I think those are the 8 states um, that do medical. They don't do surgical. They do medical, which again, I don't like it. I do not agree with it. I think it's cruel and unusual punishment, but it is what it is, right? This right here, this right here, nah, this is good. This that goes too far. You cannot just. There's no way you could justify saying that that's okay.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And again, we'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks for bringing that up to our attention, Lawrence. I appreciate you. Um,
That
okay,
that's that was one of the craziest stories that I read, and I was like, oh no, we have to discuss this.
oh yeah. Okay, so with that, Lawrence, I think I kind of want to just give some time for that. We're gonna do a piece from last year about when a local organization was getting some right-wing harassment. Um, but I guess any other kind of parting thoughts before we slide into that?
Oh, I muted myself.
Yeah,
Um, no, hey, uh, as of right now, no, I don't have anything. I'm just bumping They Not Like Us right now. That's all. Uh,
oh yeah,
we will have to have a separate episode to actually break down the Drake Kendrick and the Great Rap War of 2024.
yeah. Mhm.
We have as hip hop heads, because we're both hip hop heads, we have to sit down and have that conversation because it is super dope.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, everybody have a good month, have a good year. I'll talk to y'all another time.
All right, great. Thanks again, Lawrence, and for everybody listening on the radio. This next piece we're gonna play.
Oh
This
wait,
comes.
wait. I gotta say one more
Yeah.
thing. My nephew Marquand graduated this year, so I would be a very bad uncle if I did not shout out my nephew. Uh, my nephew Marquand. He graduated, and his graduation was this past weekend. It was awesome. He's awesome, and I am happy and overjoyed, and I cannot wait to see what my nephew is going to do next. So yeah, I have to shout out Marquand, my
All
nephew
right.
Marquand. I hope I cannot wait to see what he does next.
Congratulations, by the way. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Man.
man.
All
Yeah,
right.
man. I'm getting old, man. We're getting old.
Oh God. Yeah. Don't remind me. All right. So for those listening on the radio, this next piece, this comes from this is actually February 15th of 2023, but not too long ago. And as you all remember, last year we were running a lot of stories about anti-queer bigotry. And out front Kalamazoo, and again, Pride Festival this weekend is primarily a big fundraiser for that organization. This is a story we ran last February about they were getting dogpiled and trolled by right wingers. Interview with one of their organizers at the time, Grace Geen, and we'll be playing out the rest of this episode with that interview. Want to thank y'all again for listening. This is Media Cyphers, your only source for political revolution. And until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.